This one, yeah, Eddie Hearn was quizzed about the PBA by Eamon, poor sickly Eamon. He wasn't poor and sickly then, but asked him over the weekend after the show, what do you think of the PBA? And he said, I think they're a very professional, well-run organisation who've got a big future in the sport. So we wait to understand if that future will be with Matchroom at any point. Harry Clark says, unless this is an announcement, which I doubt highly, we're all waiting for Eddie Hearn to sort out Eubank. And we'll talk about that in a minute, because there is still this idea that Eubank has not signed. But I think a lot of that is due to the lack of board sanctioning of the fight, because Eubank has a British boxing license. Frank Warren, before the rapprochement with Eddie Hearn, was saying he expects Eubank Jr. to have his license taken away if he were to fight under the PBA or another commission on UK soil against Benn. Vyacheslav Glaskov, not the real one. We get this a lot, Steve. You'll get used to it. A lot of average to decent heavyweights. People take the names of them in the live chat. Mm-hmm. Eddie will get back the £1 million he said he lost when the fight got cancelled. Thunder Road says, started talking about Eubank Benn, but the poll is on Joshua Davison. Danny is doing his best. Thunder Road, I need you to start telling people to give us the thumbs up. It's always effective, and you haven't done it yet. But yes, Mod Mother Quiver did unfortunately put up the wrong poll. She's been told to stand in the corner for the next 5 minutes, and then we're going to let her come back in. Yeah, there we go. 70 watching. Let's hit the thumbs up for the lads. But yeah, Steve, what do you make of that? Because surely it's a big risk, not just for Eubank Jr., but also for his team, trainer, manager, perhaps, Kalle Sauerland, who's his promoter. They've all got British Boxing Board of Control licenses. Warren says that since H-Azora, those rules against other British Boxing Board licensed boxers fighting on other sanctioning body shows have been tightened right up. So what do you make of it? And do you think that's enough of a threat to stop Eubank and the people around him earning what will be the biggest purse of his career?
No, I don't think it will be, to be honest. The licensing thing is an issue. Again, you went back to H-Azora. People were threatened at the time. You'll have your license taken off you. We saw people with Irish licenses participating. Obviously, they're exempt from those kind of sanctions. If it's going to be on UK soil, maybe they'll come to some kind of agreement. And then they'll say, oh, you can get the license back after so long. Or boxers are so inactive these days. You could say you're going to get the license taken off you for a year or something. They might not even fight within that year. So I think they'll be able to work around that. But it is a bit of a deterrent to some people who might be a bit worried about that. Maybe trainers or seconds or something. But for the fighters themselves, I think they'll be able to work around it. And Kalle, I think, has the license, or Nissa has the license, maybe one of the two of them. So obviously they'll be under pressure as well. But you might see them turn up on the undercard of like a Misfits or something, Danny, or something maybe on YouTube. We could get them on the undercard there. But yeah, the license issue is a problem, but they'll work around it. I'm confident of that.
The undercard of Misfits, not even the main event. I love it. Hassan, really good question. I think this is from Hassan. I'll tackle it first, and then Steve can jump in. Hassan says, who is more likely to become a world champion between Eubank Jr. and Benn? That is by no means a given, as both could end up without winning a title based on the talent in their respective divisions. That is a real tough one. The thing is, we expect Terence Crawford at some point to vacate all of his belts. I know one's gone already. And perhaps move up to super welterweight for the rematch with Spence or a fight with another big star. I know Canelo's been talked about. Not sure how likely that is. But there is such a crop of talent at welterweight coming up behind Crawford. You've still got Spence if he decides to stay there. Boots Ennis, of course, is mentioned a lot. Stanionis is a very good fighter. Virgil Ortiz as well. So there's a number of really good fighters at welterweight. I think middleweight's not quite as deep as welterweight. And I think you look at the guy, his name escapes me at the moment, but the Janibek beat to unify the belts recently. And you'd probably give Eubank Jr. a decent chance. Like the form that Eubank Jr. showed in the rematch with Liam Smith, you'd probably give him a decent chance against that guy. But he's no longer got a belt, obviously. So he'd be going up against a Janibek or a Charlo, who's been inactive, obviously, until recently. I don't know. I think I would have to say Benn, purely because he's younger. He's a lot earlier in his career, and he's going to get more opportunities. Whereas Eubank Jr. has already had that world title crack against George Groves, of course, and came up short. So, you know, he might be he's nearer to the end of his career than the beginning, whereas you might not say that about Conor Benn. But it's by no means a confident pick either way. Steve, what do you think?
I'm not so sure, because middleweight is very weak, as you mentioned at the moment. Gualtieri lost to Janibek, gave up his belt. But if Gualtieri is the kind of standard, I would look at Eubank and say he's got a good chance of beating him. So all of a sudden, an opportunity out the blue, a broken belt, someone drops a belt, an interim, if you're counting them, might come available, and Eubank could find himself within the next fight or in the next couple of fights getting the opportunity to contest that. So even though he is advanced in years, he's 34 now, I think he's on enough of a stage now, coming off the back of a really good win. If that belt opportunity presented itself, he could definitely slide in and win one. I wouldn't put it past him at all. As for Ben, again, people say, oh, it's very difficult to become a world champion, which it is, but you could just get a splintered belt, a vacant belt, what an organisation all of a sudden gives you an opportunity, and Ben's fighting against a weak opponent, and not the likes of Ennis, who I think is an absolute destroyer, not the likes of Spence, who knows how much he's got left, but some of the guys down the pecking order a little bit. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that people can pick up belts. We've seen some pretty weak belt holders in the past. So why not Eubank and Ben? But definitely for Eubank, I think the opportunity's there. I'm looking down the rankings here. Elijah Garcia's in at number 8, really talented fighter. Carlos Adames, Austin Williams. You know, Eubank would fancy his chances against some of these guys.
Live research there, real time. This is what you get with Steve Wellings, someone of the caliber of Steve Wellings on SO Live.
I don't remember anything, that's the thing.
Yeah, this is what you get when you employ people with bad memories. No, I'm joking. It's very, very refreshing to see that. We'll go to the chat shortly, but there's a poll up. The right one this time. Mod Mother Queever has left the corner that we put her in. No one puts Queever in the corner, not for more than 5 minutes anyway. And the poll is, do you care if Eubank Ben is sanctioned by the British Boxing Board of Control? Are you asked, basically? Will you still watch it either way? I'm not trying to push you in any direction with that, but does it mean something to you? I mean, I like to think we get a cross-section of pretty hardcore boxing fans on SO Live. So is this something that offends you? Just, do you care? Is it a factor for you? Let us know in the poll. Vyacheslav Glaskov says, it seems an endgame move if true. Do they expect this purse to be big enough for all involved to potentially retire? Unless trainers, promoters move and get foreign licenses. Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one because obviously Frank Warren, as we alluded to, was threatened with all sorts of stuff with H. Zora on the Luxembourg Commission. And Warren's still a license holder, still putting on regular shows. So maybe the threat isn't quite as serious as some would lead you to believe. But also, Conor Benn, for example, has already got a foreign license. He's got a license in the US. But that's what I believe the board rejected, was his application to box here as coming in on a foreign license. But yeah, they said it's not appropriate because the appeal process from themselves and from UCAD against the independent panel's decision to lift Conor Benn's suspension is ongoing. And they said it wouldn't be right to consider or grant his application while that process is ongoing. Tony Lyon says Conor Benn will be a champion. He's got all the tools to be a champion and has serious aggressiveness and power to top it off. Thunder Road, similar to what I said, I think, says Eubank is 34 and is chasing money fights instead of belts. I'd go with Ben, who's only 27. Jack Dutton, I wonder if the winner of Eubank Ben could fight Janibek. The last I heard, Jamel Charlo might be fighting Benavidez sometime next year. Yeah, I mean, Janibek seems to be called out by pretty much everyone because, you know, he's shown a willingness to fight whoever's up there for it. But I don't know. I'd make Janibek a favourite against Eubank or Ben, regardless of who comes out on top in that fight. I don't think Ben's a genuine middleweight for a start. And I also don't feel Eubank's shown enough, even with the rematch win over Liam Smith, which was a career best performance from him, to show that he'd be able to take Janibek, who's in his prime and looking better with every fight. Kevin Worrell says there's been worse fighters than Eubank or Ben that's become world champion. Yeah. Let's talk about stating the obvious, Kevin. I mean, come on. We could all reel off some of the worst world champions we know, worst world champions in history, but it does seem like the divisions they're in, particularly welterweight, is a pretty deep division. And just for the context of this particular episode, we are only counting the big four world title belts. None of your WBA regular or IBOs, unfortunately. Tony Lyons, Eubank ain't bothered about being a champion, in my opinion. He's just wanting to get paid as much as he can before he retires. Who can blame him? That's what I'm looking for before I retire. I'm looking for the ability to retire. That would be a start.
I agree with that, Janny. Just quickly, sorry, I was going to say, he's like on the periphery sometimes, isn't he? Why would he fight a Janibek when he can fight a Ben or a Kell Brook? Or, you know, it's like a name, the way he fought De Gale. Why would he go in against a Janibek? That's what Kevin's point is a good one, I think.
See, Kevin, you got the Steve Wellings endorsement there, mate. You want to frame that. You don't get many of those.